The Galactic Council chambers had never been quieter. Ambassador HFY of the Vorthak Empire stood at the central podium, his forearms gesticulating wildly as he addressed the assembled delegates from across known space. "The humans are weak," he declared, his voice carrying the typical arrogance of his species. "Their so-called empathy makes them unfit for serious galactic politics. They waste resources on the elderly, the sick, the useless. He paused for dramatic effect. They even mourn their dead for entire cycles." Ripples of what passed for laughter echoed through the chamber from various species. The Krelltax delegation clicked their mandibles in amusement, while the silicon-based Quarth hummed their approval in harmonic frequencies. Ambassador Sarah Chen sat perfectly still in the human delegation section, her face an unreadable mask. Beside her, General Morrison's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly, the only sign of his growing irritation. "Furthermore," HFY continued, warming to his theme, "they refuse to abandon non-productive members of their society. Their military doctrine is compromised by this weakness. They will risk entire battalions to save single soldiers. It is inefficient, illogical, soft." The word soft hung in the air like an accusation. Several delegates nodded their agreement, particularly those from species that had evolved from predatory stock or harsh, resource-scarce worlds. Chen finally stood, her movement drawing immediate attention. The chamber fell silent as she approached the podium, her steps measured and deliberate. "Honored delegates," she began, her voice calm but carrying clearly through the vast space. "My colleague speaks of efficiency, of logic, of the strength that comes from abandoning the weak." She paused, looking directly at HFY. "Perhaps we should test this theory." 3 days later, the test came unexpectedly. The distress signal originated from the Kepler 442b mining colony, a joint venture between human corporations and Vorthak industrial conglomerates. The automated message was brief and terrifying. "Seismic event. Colony compromised. Requesting immediate evacuation. Estimated survivors 47 beings. 18 human, 29 Vorthak." The nearest vessels belonged to both species fleets stationed just 2 systems away for a joint military exercise. Both governments received the distress call simultaneously. Within hours, the Vorthak response was clear and decisive. Admiral Korth transmitted his assessment to the Galactic Council. "Rescue operation not viable. Cost of deployment exceeds value of recoverable assets. 47 lives insufficient to justify risk to trained crews and expensive vessels. Recommend writing off the loss." The human response took longer to formulate, but when it came, it shook the galaxy. "This is Admiral Elizabeth Hayes of the UES Perseverance," came the transmission broadcast on all channels. "We have 18 of our people down there. We're going in." What followed defied every prediction model the galaxy's greatest strategic minds could devise. First came the 7th Fleet, 12 heavy cruisers and their escorts. Then the Medical Corps ships, their red crosses gleaming against the black of space. But that was just the beginning. From Earth came the 2nd Volunteer Army, 30,000 troops who had signed up within hours of hearing about the trapped colonists. From Mars, the Engineering Corps loaded their ships with enough equipment to rebuild the entire colony. From the Belt, the miners came in their battered but reliable haulers, ready to dig through a planet if necessary. But it was the children who made the galaxy stop and stare. 8-year-old Emma Thompson from Luna Colony had captured the attention of human space when her father, Chief Engineer Marcus Thompson, was identified among the trapped miners. Her tearful plea during a routine news broadcast, "Please bring my daddy home," had been viewed over 3 billion times within 12 hours. The effect was immediate and unprecedented. Private military contractors donated entire fleets. Retired veterans came out of retirement. Scientists abandoned their research to volunteer for the rescue mission. Corporate executives liquidated personal assets to fund additional ships. Within 72 hours, nearly 200 vessels of every description were burning hard toward Kepler 442b. The flotilla stretched across several thousand kilometers of space, the largest single rescue operation in galactic history. For one 8-year girl's father. For 18 humans total, the galaxy watched in bewildered fascination as this armada approached the disaster zone. News crews from a dozen species followed the fleet, broadcasting live footage of the rescue attempt. The mining colony was indeed a catastrophe. Seismic activity had collapsed most of the underground facilities. leaving the survivors trapped in a few stable pockets deep beneath the surface. Traditional rescue equipment would have taken weeks to reach them, time they didn't have. But the humans hadn't brought traditional equipment. They brought military-grade excavators that carved through solid rock like flesh. They brought atmospheric processors that created breathable air pockets in the tunnels. They brought medical bays that could treat any conceivable injury. They brought computational power that mapped every grain of sand on the planet's surface. Most importantly, they brought numbers. 15,000 rescue workers operated in rotating shifts around the clock. When one team grew exhausted, 3 more were ready to take their place. The Vorthak survivors were rescued first, a detail that wasn't lost on the watching galaxy. Despite the species' earlier dismissal of the mission, humans risked their lives to save them with the same desperate intensity they showed for their own people. All 47 colonists were pulled from the wreckage alive. In the aftermath, as the massive human fleet prepared to disperse back to their normal duties, Ambassador HFY found himself in an unprecedented position. His government had ordered him to thank the humans for saving 29 Vorthak citizens his own people had written off as acceptable losses. The formal ceremony was broadcast across the galaxy. HFY approached Admiral Hayes, who stood at attention on the bridge of the Perseverance. "Admiral," he said, his usual arrogance noticeably absent, "my government extends its gratitude for your actions. We misjudged the situation." Hayes studied him for a long moment before responding. "Ambassador, you didn't misjudge the situation. You misjudged us." She gestured toward the viewscreen, where Earth was visible in the distance, a small blue marble that had somehow managed to coordinate the largest rescue operation in galactic history. "You called us soft," Hayes continued. "You said our empathy made us weak. But what you witnessed wasn't weakness, Ambassador. What you witnessed was our strength." The transmission ended, but its impact reverberated across the galaxy for years to come. Military academies began studying the Kepler 442b rescue as an example of human tactical doctrine. Philosophers debated the strategic value of what humans called compassion. Economists struggled to quantify the return on investment of risking hundreds of billions of credits to save 47 lives. But perhaps the most significant change came in how other species viewed humanity's place in the galactic community. The beings who had once mocked human softness began to realize they had confused gentleness with weakness, a potentially fatal error. Because any species capable of mobilizing 200 ships and 30,000 volunteers for a single child's tears was not a species to be underestimated. They were a species that would move mountains, or in this case, entire planets, for their own. And now the galaxy knew it.